Welcome back, everybody. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I think we missed Christmas. I'm not sure. Can't remember. But nevertheless, you made it another year. Whether it was a successful year or not, you're still living and you made it over the hump and you started the new year. We are on the 10th of January. Mm, January will be over really soon. So whatever you said you was gonna do, you should probably go ahead and get started and do it. Right. Um, so far my year's been okay. Kicked off the year with some awards, some work, you know, same old, same old. When it comes to this, and I was going through some topics this morning of things I wanted to talk about. What I think is important may not be what you think is important. Um, but things I see often um is navigating, what does it look like to navigate tech? Um and skill sets. I still see that's just gonna be an ongoing thing. Right. That's gonna be an ongoing thing. I missed you too. Channel KPP2. Missed you as well. Um you can ask D. I was like, D, we got a show schedule, and she was like, no. I'm like, why? Why we ain't got no show schedule? What happened? So um I get it. Everybody needs a break, but team no sleep, team no blink. So, I get it. We all need breaks sometimes. Let's give shout outs to who all made it back this year. Let's see. Mylette, what's going on? How you doing? Um, Prudent Nuggets, how you doing? New, haven't seen that name. Misty Eyed, welcome back. Mylette, welcome back. Shay, what up? Dendrick, how you doing out there? Golden Seal, what's going on? I hope you're not taking Golden Seal. I'm just playing. Natasha Jim, what's going on? And Black Dog 21, what's up? And nevertheless, D, how are you in the back? What's up, Black Ops? I was catching some of your stuff. I was going through some content. Reaching out. I'm starting to reach out to people to do videos, interviews, and so forth. Um, got some stuff coming up as well. So you guys gonna be surprised on some of the stuff that's coming up. So, you know, stay tuned. Ernest, how you doing out there? Hope everything's good. And drop in the chat. If your new year is kicking off to be one of those years or whatever you have set for the new year, just one or two words or whatever. You don't have to write paragraphs, but let us know what you got going on for the year. All right, so I wanted to do a video, and I don't think I'm gonna be able to do this video. But I am gonna play another video. And we're going to take it from there. All right. So let me I don't know why I can't play this video. This is so strange to me. Well, let's take this video and then I can talk about it. Then we'll come in on the back end of this. Yeah, my screen is shared. Um, I have a feeling that you won't be able to hear sound. So let's play and then let me know if you hear sound or not. Can y'all hear that? Just want to make sure. If not, I'm gonna switch up stuff. No, okay. Let's switch browsers real quick. All right. All right. So let's play this and then It's a 5-minute video, and then we'll get into some commentary after this, and then we'll go from there. And I'll look at your guys' goals as you're typing them in.
Being Black in corporate America, you operate under a different rule set. And unfortunately, most people find this out the hard way. I realized that I can't get too personal with none of my coworkers or my bosses. Anything you say or do will get used against you in the court of corporate America. I realized when I became too personal, it was taken as me being unprofessional. So I swung the complete opposite direction. I didn't talk to nobody at work. I didn't open up about myself at all at work. I just did my job and then I went home, which is very effective if you don't want to get fired. But if you ever want to improve in a company or get a promotion, that's not going to work. And I had to realize a lot of corporate America isn't about how good you can do your job. It's how good can you handle people. Because unfortunately, the more likable person will most likely get that promotion. So I had to find a happy medium. I realized I had to become likable, but not share too much about myself or talk about me at all, really. So now, whenever I talk to the higher ups in my company, I always ask them questions about their personal life. And funny enough, they love to talk about it. And by the end of it, I didn't say anything about myself, and they leave the conversation like I'm a good person, like they all love me now.
Yeah, that's facts. Cause you can't.
All right. So what are y'all thoughts on that? I have my own thoughts on this. I think this is I think this where um I think this is a fine line. And the reason why I say it's a fine line because I've worked with people and they shared their lives and I shared my lives and that didn't stop a promotion. Um I worked with people where we didn't talk at all. But there that path had nothing to do with my promotion. So it's a fine line between this. Um yeah, I think for men, and this is in particular black men, that's why I brought it up. I think for black men in tech, I think that could be a thing. Could not always the case. Um, when I say could be a thing, meaning typically in tech, there's no one in the room that relates to you. So, when I say relates to you, meaning that they don't have, they lack sometimes empathy for your situation or your background. So some things are not translated as well, and then sometimes they are. Um, I have found, and it depends on what you guys call personal. Like, everybody's like, "Oh, you can't have the fanciest car coming in." I just don't give a shit. Like, I'm gonna I'm gonna drive that fancy car because I paid for it. Like, I just I just don't care about that. If that stops me from a promotion, then so be it. So it is what it is. Um, as far as sharing my personal life, um, I mean, there's nothing that I'm doing where I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't share this at work, right? So I don't know. It's a fine line, I think, on this. I also think it is a matter of um it is a matter of personal choice, right? What's your comfort level? On the flip side of that, one of the things, if we back up to what he was saying, he was like about being liked. So being liked and doing good work are two different things. Being liked um can come in different form factors, meaning I like the person's personality um outside of work, but I don't like them at work. Or I like their work ethic, but I don't like them as a person. So it's multiple nuances when it comes to it, right? The other piece I find that you have to navigate is not necessarily like, but knowing who the players are. And that's why I tell you all to figure out who the players are and who's calling the shots. Now, let me caveat that with saying is don't be a bootlicker. I'm gonna tell you that. We see it. Salute. What's going on, Professor Black Ops? We appreciate you. We appreciate your tech ties. So I I I I I navigate this. I think I do a good job of navigating this. But I may not. I don't know. I think I do a good job of navigating this. But at the same token, I think there are I think I think you learn people and you learn who do you want to navigate with. In other words, you learn about how people are and if you want to be associated with them, if you want to navigate with them, if you want to do things with them, I think you learn that. So, but I think for black men, I think a lot of times you guys do yourself a disservice by not talking and not understanding how to navigate. Um Often what I see all the time is, and this is just my observation over the years. Y'all come to work, you do your job, and you go home. What happens with that mindset is you come to work, you do your job, and you go home is you forgot to network and you forget to network with people that are making the decisions. So you go unseen. So when a wave of layoffs come around, you get laid off. Not because you didn't do your job, it's just because nobody knew who you were. They didn't even know you existed. Right? So I've seen it that way. I've seen it where people do know you exist and you still get laid off. So it's a fine line. That's why I say understand the company, understand the business development that the company is doing and where they're going and what they want to do, and make sure you are ahead of that, but also keep up with your skill set and what the customer that you're working for, what they're trying to do too, because you can always parlay with other companies as well too. So you don't have to always stick to the company that you're working with. You could probably parlay a relationship and then move over to other companies. I see it all day, every day. My thoughts only, I'm open to your guys' thoughts. Let me read the comments in here. Let me start back up with what people are doing and then we'll roll back into it. So I saw some people talking about the RHCSA, obtaining the Security Plus, PNP, hopefully transition out of public sector. Okay, I got you, GS. Yeah, come on over to the contractor side. CCNA, Security Plus, RHCSA, RHCE. I'm with it. Let's see. RCSA K8. Yeah, if you're gonna do K8, do the CKS too. Just take the class. At least get with it. Um, and then I see Dendrick, you said it's true. You agree with him? Like I said, I'm on the fence on that. Mm, share some as a black man, do not bring any political or personal opinion in the office and be professional. I mean, be personal face level. I guess you were saying being and be personal face level. I'm kind of elaborate on that. Small talk, never really anything. Yep, shooting shit. Yep. Larry, you say undertones of code switching. I am 40-year-old black man, and most of my coworkers are older and not black. Being a veteran makes me even more unrelatable. Every situation is different. It is. True. Be very careful. The minute you're unlike, often what you share is used against you. Yes and no. Um, yeah, uh, channel, you say black men don't know how to code switch. Maybe I don't know. I think there is a line, right? Um, I'll say it this way. Um, you you don't necessarily code switch when you understand what the company is trying to do and you understand the baseline of where they're trying to go, right? So you don't code switch that way, right? You when you understand the basics of what the company is trying to do, there's no code switching. Is this is what you're trying to do, and this is what I'm working towards getting us to do, blah blah blah. That's it. Um, you said I do hang out and have drinks and a cigar after work with management. That's where you learn to get exactly. You do have to go. Like a lot of people say they don't want to go to like happy hours and so forth or so on. Listen, you can go to happy hour and not drink. You can get you a Sprite and splash it with some cranberry juice or something like that to make it look like a mixed drink. Look, let me tell you something. This is where you get into finding out who drinks what, how they drink, are they alcoholics, who smokes what, how do they handle their liquor, who talks, what are they like outside of work. Not to say you're going to use that against them, it just gives you clarity about who they are. And that's what you want. You want to have clarity about who someone is and what they do outside of work. Because at work, I could be a multitude of things, right? But it at outside of work, I get a chance to see who you are, how you act, what's happening. Um, do you have a spouse? Um, how do you and your spouse interact with each other? Um, what type of spouse do you have? Is this a person that likes to knock you upside the head? I get to see what what you really like, right? I because again, I tell you all the time from a female's perspective or a woman's perspective, um, how how men, and this is just my thoughts, how men treat women at work is how they treat their wives at home. Take it for what it's worth. My thoughts only. So if you got someone that's belligerent and yelling at you at work, he probably do that at home. And if I meet the wife and I look at the wife and I look at him, I'm like, oh yeah, she get knocked upside the head. So I know that me and that person gonna always do this. So if I know that if I see that, now I know how I need to navigate with you, right? Now I know, okay, this person is this is who they are. They're like this here and they're like this at home. Okay. Now I get a chance to form my game plan on how to navigate that person, right? Through email, through conversation, or not being alone in the room with that person, or whatever the case may be. I get a chance to navigate that. I also get a chance to learn about their weaknesses, right? Their strengths and their weaknesses. I learn both. So being able to navigate, like people like, oh, I'm not gonna say anything. You got to give a little to take a little, right? Give a little bit, take give 10%, take 90, right? Give 10%, take 90. But understanding how to navigate, who write the checks, who that person is friendly with, who they served in the military with, who they went to college with, who they've been working on different projects with, what projects they got going on outside of work, projects they got going on at work, people they talk to all the time at work, who they're friends with, who they go to lunch with. You guys got to learn how to navigate that. So, do I agree with what he said? No, because I think there's a fine line on how to do it. And if you're going to sit back and just say you get up and go to work every day and that's all you want to do, that's all you will get. You will only get that 2%, that 3% raise. If you're not making yourself known on projects, if you're not putting in time on those projects and talking to the people, that project manager or whoever that is, right? Whoever has that influence, but don't be a bootlicker. That's not what I'm telling you. What I'm telling you is be the change maker, right? Be that person that they can rely on and be that change maker. Now, that's at work. What do you do outside of work? You take those same skill sets that you learn and build up your own stuff outside of work if you want to, right? A lot of you go to work, come home, and you don't have a fallback plan. That fallback plan is where you start your studying, your your uh you're studying, your looking across the landscape about where you want to be. I don't think everybody wants to be a system administrator for 30 years. I just don't see that happening. But you might. But what does that look like for you to be that sysadmin, that DevSecOps engineer? You might. You might want to be that. I don't know. However, congratulations, channel KPP2 for being 100,000 member. Um, One of the big things that I know I was guilty of, just myself, was getting up, going to work, and coming home. But this was after I had already finished my master's and so forth, and then I start focusing on just new life, right? New life after divorce, blah 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 blah, right? Just new area, just trying to figure it out. Where do you want to be? And then after a while, like any other thing, that gets old. The going out gets old. The whatever, the traveling, it gets old because now you look up and you realize 3 years done went by, 4 years went by, and you're like, over that, right? Real quick, right? So again, when I say keep your own foot on your own neck, that's really what I mean. Is you got to be able to navigate this space and ask questions and the why, right? What and how does that move and if it's a skill set that you don't have, look at it and say, is that a skill set you want to obtain? um and find other people in the industry that are doing it, and even just look internally to in the company about other people that are doing it as well too, so something that you can navigate. Let me scroll up and look at some of these comments as well too. um Fran, you said I got interviewed Tuesday afternoon for a small contracting company in Charleston. Congratulations. Is this a consulting gig or something that you're doing as you're trying to onboard to the company as a W-2 employee? Yeah, the black men have to be social enough not to be seen as off-putting or threatening. I think I honestly think that's what black women have to do as well too. I don't. That's my personal thoughts there. They love to speak into beings. Yep, yep. Ask questions in them architecture meetings and stop sitting quiet. Yep. Um, Ask questions in every meeting. Like, just hey, just make sure your questions are relevant. Just make sure your questions are relevant and that you've researched. I'm not saying questions are stupid, but sometimes some things you could have already looked up and the answer is there, right? So if it's a question, you can say, okay, I looked this up. This is what I found. Is this still true? Have we also thought about one, two, three, four? Right. So at least show that you've researched the material and then go from there. All right. So it's Tamika feedback. Let's get their feedback and see what they're saying. What they say from their end. All right.
Yeah, you can't tell them that you was in the section till 2 a.m. turned up last night.
And you can't just act like you know what I'm talking about. It's like, man,
He's
like,
a
because
tough
people
cookie.
like to recommend people they like to work with. So Lee he was asking me some stuff about work and like whenever I probably find somewhere else to work at. And I was talking about like a coworker I worked with at 3 companies. He's like, how y'all do that? I was like, every time I went
You
somewhere,
bring them.
they needed somebody
You
else.
know what's crazy is I have a teammate that's like that. I think they've been working together for like 20 years. That's dope.
Yeah, because I mean, it's hard to find. Like, my first sadness was when one of my work friends and work mentor, when Ron got a new job. So I was like, dang. And then when I got laid off, it sucked. But when they was hiring, I was like, yo, I know this guy. They said, yeah, bring him. Because this is something we ain't talked about a lot. We always talk about remote work. Here was the benefit of being when people are hiring for a certain location in office, and it's not a lot of people with the skill set. So I was like, oh yeah, my boy that work at so-and-so up the street, he perfect. Okay, tell him to apply. He ended up getting hired because he was already in the area. Like,
And especially when you can vouch for somebody that you know is going to come and do good work and great things for the team versus somebody that's not.
So what they're talking about is relationships, right? Relationships. All right. So that's the one big thing. Like you got to have relationships at work and outside of work, right? So you know how to navigate and know what you can do and what you can't do, right? If you busy over there, not socializing, not talking to somebody, blah 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 blah, woo woo woo, that's cool. But go find somebody else to talk to. Man, you ain't gotta talk to that person. You ain't gotta like everybody you work with. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying understand how to navigate it where it makes sense to you, where it keeps the peace down, but you're still a scene, right? Your work ethic is one thing, but your network is another thing, right? So just keep that in mind.
facts. And then here's the last one. I feel like we're just gonna make this his own.
In the workplace, there's a lot of people who don't like the fact that you have an identity outside of the position that you hold. Why? Because their identity comes from the position that they hold. They don't believe that they're nothing more than this position. Meaning when they go home, who are
I
they?
actually favored
They don't think
this.
they're much. But when they
Indeed.
clock in, they're the CEO. When they clock in, they're the vice president. When they clock in, they're the middle manager. They have a title, they have a sense of purpose. When they go home, they're like, oh my gosh. And they do not like the fact that you have a sense of identity outside of your job. They don't know what to do with you when your job does not identify you. The reason why is because their job identifies them. And they cannot imagine, because that's where they are, they cannot imagine someone else having a sense of identity outside of that because they don't. Does that make sense?
I agree. And
I agree and I disagree. I agree there are haters. But I don't think it always comes from management. It could be your coworker. It could be somebody on this stream right now. Right. So, and again, I don't believe always that management is like that. I do believe that some of your coworkers are like that. And I've seen that from other folks saying that their coworkers were like that. However, for me, when I go to work, I don't really talk about women in Linux at work. I just talk about because it's a fine line. Um, so with women in Linux, because we talk about DevSecOps and site reliability engineering platform anyway, well, I'm already doing that anyway. So it's kind of like I don't need to talk about it because I'm already doing it anyway. All right. I don't go to work and say, oh, I got to get my streams up. I got to get this and I got to get that. I don't need to talk about that. What I do, what I may say, oh, the stream was good. We talked about this on the stream, blah, 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 blah. So it's kind of a catch-22 there.
I think it's important to
That's also
separate the two.
that's the slippery scope of one, not like the guy was talking about, not talking about too much what you got going on outside of work,
Mhm.
and two, not leveraging where you work at as your identity
10 out of 10.
and stuff that
Agreed.
connect you to that workplace.
Yep.
And you leveraging it to get you opportunities because that's going to breed resentment.
Mhm.
It always does.
I agree.
And we've
It's
seen
a-
this
it's-
happen.
I think it's important to have a good balance and separation between the two, for real.
Yeah.
We've talked about that a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Their digital footprint is crazy.
But yeah, I mean, and that's why I think one of the ones we reacted to, they were talking about that's the reason why a lot of the white men want to come back in office because that's where they're kings, because the kids don't like them, they don't like their wife, and
Like I said, how they act at home spills over into the workplace. I'm just saying. So it behooves you to find out who that person is married to or their significant other special friend, um, so that you can see how they interact with each other, right? What that interaction is. And that gives you great insight to personality of that person, background of that person, this, that, and other. Like, I'll give you an example. We had a guy when I first moved down here to Florida. Like he would come by my office and he would sit in my office and we would talk a little bit. And then he would leave. And as soon as he would leave, he would fart on his way out of the door. And he would walk around the office farting. He would go and sit in other people's rooms and he would fart there, this, that, and other. He would pick his nose right in front of you, this, that, and other. So one day I got to talking to one of the ladies in the office, and she was like, "Oh, pay him no mind because he didn't have a parent growing up. He was in a foster home all his life, and was once he got of age, he was thrown out on the street. And He kind of made his way into figuring out engineering and going to college and becoming an engineer and so forth and so on. So he hasn't had that upbringing of a mother and a father, this, that, and the other." I was like, yeah, I hear you. I was like, but at some point you have to pick up on context clues. If somebody's telling you it's not okay to fart in my office and pick your nose in front of me and rub them on your shirt, then you should pick up on that's not something you should be doing, right? And he was older, but long story short, he met a woman online, got married, and had 2 or 3 kids by her. You know, but again, when it comes down to and I was looking into this morning, uh a lot of people have what's the right way to say this? A lot of people have traumas and dramas that spilled over into their interaction with other people, right? Their traumas, their dramas, how they interact with people, what their interact a past relationship or interaction with someone defines how they would treat someone of the similar caliber for the rest of their lives and so forth. So a lot of people are like they say, a lot of people are stuck where that trauma happened at that age. So if somebody got traumatized at 10, they're probably mentally stuck at 10 if they didn't go seek help. Just a just a just a just a little note there. And so a lot of people have to do work. And so with that being said, you also have to understand how to navigate those people as well for your own sanity and your own understanding, right? Understanding how to navigate those people is very important. Um, but that's me. I'm not being a therapist this morning. I'm just talking about navigating tech, right? Um, I'm going to see if this is going to play. I don't think it is, but I'm going to try to see if it plays. Um, Let me see. Um, it might. Hold on. Um, It played earlier. See. Um, I tried to download it and it didn't download. Hold on, let me go back and see if I can download it. No, it's not letting me download. Now it's not. I don't want to play, and I am upset about it. So I have a video. Um, Let me see if I can. I know it's not out there, but let me see if I can find it. Let's see. I bought it this morning, but I don't think people are gonna. Yeah, see, it's only 6 minutes on that one and 3 minutes on that one. No one's downloaded and uploaded it or whatnot. Mm. All right, let me do something here. Let me look. I'm looking at something. Hold on. And then while this is playing, we'll do this one here. Mm. Yeah, I could play it with text, but there is a reason why I wanted to play this video. So here we'll do this here while I work out the issue that I'm having. So this is about Maynard Jackson, and there's a reason why I'm looking at it is because I was watching I forget his name now, Andre, from being the mayor in Atlanta and going to Mays High School and um growing up in the same era of Atlanta. In order to, and this also talks about navigating tech. And here's I'm showing different things that he had to do to navigate to become mayor, and as well as these things that he had to do are the same, are the or and navigate are the same systems that are at play. So when I'm talking about it, I'm saying it from a perspective of it has already been done, but now you have to understand the system and how that system works and how you play in that system. And everybody says, I don't want to play and I'm going to leave and going to go overseas and I'm going to live over here and I'm going to go do this. That's great. That's wonderful if you make it that far. But most people are not leaving their parents, their mothers, their fathers, their cousins, their aunts, their family, their their foundation to go live overseas for the rest of their life. And some people will, but mm, some people won't. And those that are not, how do you stay and navigate and be successful at that navigation where you can create your own? A lot of people talk about legacy, and we act like legacy only comes in the form of children. And that's really not true because we see that from Maynard Jackson that his legacy still continues to live on, and not through his children, but what he was actually able to do, right? What he was actually able to accomplish. So when we talk about having pride and understanding these things, I often think we get confused about foundation, building, community, what legacy can be, what you can do, where you can be, and who you can influence and who you can bring with you. And I often think we get stuck with um understanding that not everybody's going to go with you, but when you do find those people that want to go with you, bring them with you. When you find those people that don't want to go with you, leave them. It's okay. They're going to figure it out. Right? You've done your part. You dropped the nuggets, you told them what they can do, who they can be. Like the Nas song, I know I am, right? Be what I want to be. Be. Like we you know what you want to be. Now you just got to figure out how to get there and what network you need to be a part of in order to get there. And where you need to be at in order to make sure that is your foundation. When I say that, is long standing, right? You got to have a solid foundation for that. So look at this is so background. Those that don't know who Maynard Jackson is, Maynard Jackson was the first black mayor of Atlanta. First black mayor of Atlanta that went into office, and in the not in this story, the story I'm trying to get to work. In that story, he was the first black mayor, but they didn't. The way he navigated to become mayor is the story that I wanted to talk about, in the way he navigated on being mayor. Because let's be clear, when he went into office, he pissed a lot of black people off in Atlanta, and that's the story that don't get told. But then you got to understand how people got on board after, again, understanding the data and what he was trying to do, not what I want you to be, right? So it's not in this story; it's in the other story, but that's just a little background. And I think this is important because we're at a time now where I think people don't know how to navigate, because what we're seeing from, just in general, is not a time where a lot of people, when I say a lot of people, I'm talking about Gen Z and maybe even some millennials, have not seen this. But this play that we're seeing is not a new play, it's the same play. The system may be a little different because now we got some people in power, but it's really not that different in my eye. But that's me. All right, I'm gonna stop talking.
To just become a majority. Here, the fight for Black progress focused on.
All right, can y'all hear that? I started over. Let me know if you can hear it, or if you heard it. It sounds like you heard it. Okay. I started over. Boom.
In Atlanta, Blacks had just become a majority. Here, the fight for Black progress focused.
So let me stop right there. So Atlanta wasn't always Atlanta. So what the previous mayor, and it's in the other video, the previous mayor was a white mayor. Maynard Jackson came in, but Maynard Jackson came in at a time where black people were fighting for power in Atlanta and was saying enough is enough. We're not gonna stand for this. Not only were they fighting for power in Atlanta, but they were taking local seats in Atlanta. It wasn't just it wasn't just the mayoral campaign. It wasn't that. It was everything else underneath, the city councils and so forth and so on. So that's just a little history.
Economic equity. In October 1973, Atlanta made history. Maynard Jackson was elected the first Black mayor of a large southern city.
Never shall I let you down. All of a sudden, I became the mayor not just of Atlanta, but of the Black people in Georgia and even some neighboring states.
So fun fact, he is from Dallas. So he's born in Dallas. And in the Maynard story, they talk about him navigating coming from Dallas and then coming to Atlanta. And again, in the video, and this is why I say people don't pick up on what we're experiencing. We're in the Black community. We're also and have always experienced different levels, a caste system, if you may say, if you want to look at it that way. But there are different levels. Like there are just like just like you see across the United States and in other races, there are different levels. And those don't and some of those levels don't ever mix. They don't ever mix. Your family that comes from Oak Bluff has had houses in Martha's Vineyard or Baldwin Hills or so forth are not mixing with the ones that the homeless folks that are on the street when we're talking about them to mate with. Like, let's be clear. There is a level, and we don't talk about it enough. And you find this at work. You find these different levels, and because you don't recognize what you're up against at work either. You don't recognize that you're up against some people who come from a background of elitism or elitism, and you have not. We just have not. We have not had that conversation. We talk about getting into tech, but we don't talk about the and it was shown when I brought the guy on who talked about, hey, yes, learn Rust. Yes, learn cryptography. Yes, this company only recruits from elite schools. There are companies that only recruit from elite schools. You would never get brought up in a conversation because you don't come from elite schools. I literally sat down and had to have a discussion with some of our folks because they were like, hey, we only want people from elite schools. If they're not coming out of MIT, if they're not coming out of Harvard or Yale, if they're not coming out of Ivy League, I don't want them. They're not coming out of Harvard Mud, I don't want them. They didn't graduate from Columbia, I don't want them. Right? And so what you're up against is privilege as well. Not only privilege, but you're also up against a network. And not only are you up against a network, you may be up against somebody that don't even know how to do your job. But because they have that network and because they have that privilege, they're going to tell you how to do your job, or you're going to make them look good. It happens. Top 10. Right? So I'm telling you, as you start to enter tech or stay in tech, learn how to navigate. Learn who is who and what is what. Don't be afraid to go look at people's resumes, backgrounds, see where they came from, what affiliations they have joined. What have they joined to make sure they are marketing themselves, whether it's Greek, whether it's some type of educational whether it's some type of sorority, whatever the case may be, look at those affiliations, because those affiliations matter to that person, but it also matters in helping them navigate. South Carolina had South Carolina, this happens in these small country towns. Yep. So yeah, all the time in the small country towns. They be brothers and sisters and cousins, and they own acres and acres of land and textile and farms and so forth and so on. And so they keep their money circulating throughout their family, circulating. I may not like, I may be the cousin that don't like this cousin, that don't like that cousin family, but I'd be damned if I let that cousin break away from the family tree and put money somewhere else. I may not like them, but that money is going to stay here in the family. Right? So you guys got to understand how to network with each other and build trust and build those relationships, build that foundation.
Equally important and equally difficult was what we found in the white community. Exaggerated anxiety. That anxiety was, oh my God, what are we going to do? We got a black mayor. What does this mean? Is this the end of Atlanta? We had just come through a runoff election where my opponent ran a campaign that said Atlanta's too young to die.
I support the white candidate. And as most white people did, yeah, we were very frightened because we had nothing to go on, there'd been no experience there. And we had no idea what was going to happen.
We want to dramatize what are dramatically horrible conditions. So the people will understand when we begin to talk about dramatic changes and dramatic corrective action. So we're not just overreacting. The conditions here defy description.
The mayor had limited impact on federally funded public housing. But Jackson did have the power to change the way the city operated. He hired more minorities and women. He moved against discriminatory business practices. Affirmative action was already federal policy. Jackson made it city policy.
When I became mayor, 0.5% of all the contracts in the city of Atlanta went to Afro-Americans, in a city which at that time was 50-50.
Many in the business community resisted Jackson's affirmative action policy.
This was a major manager of a major white corporation who got very upset with me about the policy on affirmative action and said, I don't see this to be necessary. We're going to do what's right. You know, you can trust us and so forth. And I said, I have every confidence, but you know, I want to trust you, but I also want you to sign on the dotted line. I said, well, look, I'm just not going to go out and hire the first Negro I see. I said, I think that's a pretty sound personnel policy. I said, I wouldn't either.
Jackson's support of black business pulled him into the ring with Muhammad Ali at a promotional event.
This is our ode to Ali. Dance like a butterfly, sting like a bee. My fists are so fast that they'll dazzle Ali. The champ may be strong, but he isn't all there if he thinks he can beat this dynamite man. But I'll tell you this, and you better know it. I may not be a fighter, but I'm darn sure a poet. So come out and see it, the fight of the year. I'll face Ali's challenge with courage, not fear. Because he...
So I'm gonna ask this question. Do you think if Maynard Jackson was darker skinned, could he have been the mayor of Atlanta at that time? You could drop it in the chat, leave yes or no. I'm just asking the question. Your thoughts.
Be a fighter, but I'll throw out this dare. He wouldn't survive for a week of being mayor.
After the fight, Ali said it was the mayor's flowered boxing trunks that saved him. One thing is for sure, Ali has learned that you cannot fight City Hall.
The challenge to Jackson's affirmative action policy was about to escalate. The issue, airport expansion.
Construction of a new airport for the city of Atlanta was one of the major projects, if not the major project in the Jackson administration. There were a number of big construction projects between 1976 and 1979 or 80, but this was the crown jewel.
Planning was already underway. But despite public criticism, Jackson announced that construction would not begin without full black participation. Emma Darnell, one of the first 2 women commissioners ever appointed in Atlanta, was responsible for implementing affirmative action guidelines.
When you begin to move in public policy in areas that involve race, you can expect a great deal of emotion.
This question, the first
and the white power structure downtown couldn't deal with Emma because not only was she black and a female, but she was smart and she was a very excellent communicator. So she would look at the contract, and if it didn't have the appropriate amount of minority participation, she'd say, take that back. get it right. They couldn't deal with that. Not a black female.
I looked at how the power structure members dealt with each other. If they disagreed, they'd say, to hell with you, and you're a
Pause right there, right? So you can see what I'm talking about here just in this clip about networking, navigating, standards, pushing forth what you want to see, where you want to be. You can see it all laid out right here. So when I'm telling you to understand how to navigate tech, I'm telling you to understand people and how to navigate people and their traumas and their dramas and so forth. And it's draining. Trust and believe it is. I don't care if you sit at home every day and work remotely, you still got to navigate people. You still got to navigate those networks, those conversations, those one-on-ones, those reviews, those interactions. You still have to navigate all that. You got to ask yourself what it is that you want out of it. What are you trying to do? Even if you're an entrepreneur, even if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you are an entrepreneur, you have to navigate, right?
and so and all this, but they would not walk away from the relationship. I said, that's fair enough. I can deal with that. My preference was to do it as a team. If we stumble, let's stumble together. If I made a mistake, fine, say I'm a dummy, but don't walk away from the relationship. I was dead wrong. When times got hot, even some of the closest friends I had in the business community, I'm talking the white power structure now, said, Maynard, that was the dumbest thing I've ever seen, and goodbye. So I miscalculated.
We felt that we were at bay. We were out there barking and nothing was happening. There was no question, but he was a full-fledged racist against white people. And this was what his charge was to see that it was turned over to blacks, and you had to be a racist to do that. Colorblindness was not part of his repertoire.
Jackson held his ground.
In fact, I'll even tell
No
you
affirmative
now,
action, no airport. After almost a year of political infighting, the city council approved the first minority contract. New city guidelines called for a minimum of 20% minority participation in all phases of the work. Jackson remained popular among most blacks. Later that year, he won re-election by a landslide. 4 a.m., September 21st, 1980. The first scheduled flight arrived at the world's largest passenger terminal. The Midfield Terminal.
All right, so 1980. So we're talking about you people are like I don't think people understand. So like from 1980 until the 1996 Olympics, you got to understand the history of Atlanta and also the understanding the history of DC. I don't think people really understand how how much aligned those two cities are, and now we include Houston. And you got to understand the networks of mayors and who talks and so forth and so on. And you got to understand the vision and the plan. Go look whatever city you're in right now. When you get off of this live, go look at and see what the mayor plan is for your city. Then go look at the whatever county you in. Go look and see what the plan is for your county. You want to talk about where the money is at, where the zip codes are at, where the wealthiest zip codes are, why those zip codes are the way that they are? You won't know until you go do your research. So it's yes, go make money in tech, but yes, have a plan on where you're going to invest, where you want to live. What is your property value increasing? Continuance of having relationships in the community where your children and your grandchildren, your nieces and your nephews and your cousins can come back and like, yeah, we know them family. That's the Boyd family. That's the Williams family. That's the Franklin family. We know them. They've been here forever. Yeah, they keep this community. That's such and such Boyd. We know him. Yeah, he come from good stock. That's good stock right there. That's good stock right there. Right? It is. This is literally how we have to do it. And if you're not on board with that, cool, got it, cool, no problem. But you got to understand how things were done so you can continue to pick up the pieces and add new flavor to those pieces.
Of the Hartsfield International Airport was officially opened. Confounding critics who labeled affirmative action a social experiment doomed to fail. The $700 million facility was completed on schedule and on budget, with a minimum of 20% minority participation in all phases of the work. Affirmative action and the airport were major triumphs of the Jackson administration, but most Blacks in Atlanta had not benefited. By the time the airport opened, Atlanta was the second poorest city in the country. There were clear limits to what local electoral power could achieve. Electing
second poorest city in the country. Now what? Now everybody wanna everybody wanna be in Atlanta. Second poorest city in the country. What's the richest city right now? Let's look it up. Right now, New York is leading by a significant margin. Then, however, San Francisco, San Jose is a major hub for tech. Well, Washington State, Atherton, California, so forth. Some of the richest cities in the country, right? And you got to understand where that money comes from, how those communities are built. It's not just through marriage, by the way. It ain't just through marriage. It's one of the ways, but it ain't just through marriage.
office was only the beginning.
We were, for all practical purposes, engaged in a revolution. We knew that that's what it was. It was still the civil rights revolution. Those persons during the 60s laid down their lives and died to put us into these positions of power. We did not consider these positions of power to be ends in and of themselves.
Dr. King taught us to remember our roots, remember our brothers and sisters who are still now locked in the dungeons of deprivation. Yet today he sees some Black people who have escaped from poverty for the time being, and who also are trying to escape their duty to the poor.
What it's about is what's on the inside. You know, have you really been deeply and permanently affected by the blood that has been shed in order for you to sit behind the desk? Do you actually feel any sensitivity and responsibility to all of those folk out there in those churches and those programs who stand up and give you big applause, believing that you stayed on the case? Or are you really in there trying to hold your ground to get your house, get your car, get your BMW, get invited to the right receptions, and be considered a leader?
All right, so I'm just pointing things out, right? Here I am pulling up this article. Let me see if it was talking about H.J. Russell and so forth. I can't find the video won't even play for me now. It was playing, but it don't play for no. It don't play now. Hold on, let me see. Let me see if this will play. No, it's an interview with Maynard Jackson. That I wanted to catch. It's at Washington University of Washington. Oh, maybe it might play. Hold on. Let me see. Let's see if I can grab it. I've never seen this interview, so I have no idea what's in it. Oh no, it's playing over there. Let's see if it plays for us. Let's see if it plays. Nope, not playing there. Hold on. Maybe if I get it to play over here, I can reshare. All right, let's do that. Let's stop sharing and see if I can get it to play. Hold on. Hold on, let me pull it over. And see, share screen. This one. Y'all let me know if you can. Oh no, not that one. Y'all let me know if you can hear on this one.
Sound 408.
Can you hear? Let me know if I'm echoing too.
Okay, so thinking about that question I put to you, do you feel that you were destined?
And it stopped. Just right when we was getting into it. They don't want me to be great today. Said, yeah, it's buffering.
Well, if I was, it was a realization that came late. I am descended from 3 generations of Baptist ministers. And if anything, I felt I may have been destined to go into ministry. In fact, I think I had almost decided to do that before my father died when I was 15. I had gone to Morehouse when I was 14 as a freshman.
Still low?
On an early admissions program with the Ford Foundation scholarship. And he died when I was 15, and luckily I was surrounded by the value system that my father and mother felt was important. I decided not to go into ministry, and I began to think about what I could do to apply what I felt were certain talents in another direction that might have a similar benefit. And I decided to become a lawyer because I could use then the skills as a lawyer to change the law, to make things better that way, and did so as an attorney for the poor for many years.
So I'm gonna pause right there. So one in the story that it's Maynard on Amazon Prime if you guys want to rent it. I think it's like $3.99 to rent it. In the story of Maynard, in that story, they talk about him going to law school, but one of the big things about him becoming mayor in Atlanta is he was behind the mayor that was white, so it was a vice mayor. He was a vice mayor. And in the story, it talks about him being the vice mayor when they would have meetings. In the meetings, the mayor wouldn't show up, but the vice mayor could vote things into power if the mayor didn't show up. So he would go to all the meetings that the mayor wouldn't go to and vote things into power. And so what he was doing was establishing his voice. What he was doing was establishing that, yes, I'm coming for you. However, this is what I want to see. Here's what I want to run on. So one of the big things was in Atlanta at that time and the reason why blacks felt like they were left out when we're talking about political blacks here is because he didn't come to them and ask them what they wanted to do and what his platform should be. He ran on his own platform, so they felt slighted. And in the video, they talk about that. It is the same again. It is the same thing they did with Obama. Same thing. He ain't talking about our issues. And it's like, well, is he not talking about your issues? Because that's what you want, or is he talking about your issues in an indirect way and taking an indirect path to get there? Right. And I think we often forget that sometimes in this climate, we can't be straightforward. We got to go the opposite direction in order to get there. My thoughts.
People, friends of mine in Cleveland, where I waited tables in the late 50s and sold encyclopedias door to door, tell me that they remember my saying then that I intended to run for mayor of Atlanta. I have no recollection of that. But what I will tell you is that whatever may have been my feelings early on, I've always known that I was destined for some sort of public service, whether it meant elected office or in the ministry or at the bar.
Oh, don't buffer.
As an attorney, some way trying to use the skills that I had and the value system that I was taught by my family to change things for the better for those who were the most oppressed. And lo and behold, Bobby Kennedy, King was shot and killed. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot and killed. And he was buried the day after my first child was born, Brooke, my daughter Brooke. She was born April the 8th of 1968. So she was 2 days old when I went from the hospital to the grave. And I spent 3 days thinking about what I was going to do with my life and decided that politics, although not perfect, was the best available nonviolent means of changing how we live. And that's when I decided to get into politics. But I thought even then I would take a long time to phase into it, 2, 3, 4 years. I wanted to build a law firm. And lo and behold, less than 2 months later, after declining to run for the state house and telling a group of neighbors that I would not do that, they left. I sat down to watch the Democratic returns from the California primary and saw Bobby Kennedy shot to death.
Mm.
When that went off finally early in the morning hours, the late news had been delayed and came on, announced that Herman Talmadge, then the U.S. Senator from Georgia, was going to run the next day. That day really was the last day to qualify, June the 5th of 1968, for the U.S. Senate, and apparently nobody was going to oppose him. So I went to work that morning, and I resigned my job, spent all day borrowing $3,000 for the qualifying fee, and ran for the U.S. Senate. That was 20 years ago. I was 30 years old. I'm 20 years ago, and I'm 40 years old, of course, today.
Yeah, he look a good
But
weighing on him. But I say all that to say, like, this goes on. This is 62 minutes. I'm not going to go through 62 minutes. I just want to give you all some glimpse of my thought process on things, navigating stuff, and here's why. Let me pull it is up right here. How would you navigate to get this job here? What would you do? It's a DevOps architect role. It's with info blocks. 195 to 300 is the range. It's in Atlanta or Tacoma, in person, no remote. 15 years. They want some Gen AI, CI/CD, Kubernetes, so forth and so on. They got some benefits. Want to integrate some AI tools. And I'm walking and talking through this with you all because I want you all to start thinking like, how do I network and navigate to get in positions? Right? Navigate to get into positions. Network to get into positions. Yes, apply, but also network. And I'm putting it out here like, yes, you could do this, but um let's go look at info blocks. Here's the CEO, Scott Carell. Let's go look at his pedigree. Out of Georgia Tech, UNC, skills, product manager, tech evangelism, strategy, go-to-market strategy. These are all things you could leverage into your own skill set to network with someone like him. All right, let's go here. How much are they worth? Because it was taken private by Vista Equity Partners in a roughly $1.6 billion deal in 2016. So we know at least 1.6 billion, and they've been in this private equity company, which is another conversation that I'll have next week with you all about understanding private equity and what do they do and what do they own, and how you probably work for a company that is owned by a private equity company or have an interview and didn't know it. All right. So these are the conversations that I want us to be able to freely have on this. Yep, Robert Smith. Right. So again, networking. Lockheed Martin secures $500 million in defense contracts. Networking. What are they doing? Where's the work being done out of? What are you looking to do? What are you looking to work for them? Are you looking to be a contractor with them? What does that look like? This one. The Pentagon is short 20,000 cyber pros. Veterans can help fill the gap. 20,000. They said the cyber shortfall is estimate 750,000. 20,000 that they need inside of the Pentagon. The Pentagon awards 25.3 billion to microelectronics contract to 10 companies. What does that mean? Here's the list of all those companies right here. Right? Air Force right here, 1.8 billion. Navy contract right here, Lockheed Martin. The list goes on here. It tells you exactly where they're dropping money at. Now you need to go network to get that money. At least a slither. At least a piece of the pie. Right? 7.75 billion reason to buy ServiceNow stock in 2026. If you're not familiar with ITSM, get familiar with it. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to this Maynard stuff. I want to get through this before we get out of here. I just want to make sure. Meta to buy Manus, a AI startup with Chinese roots. I think there'll be 2 billion. All right. Let's go here. NVIDIA advanced talks about Israel's A121 lab for 3 billion. We gotta start talking about these different networks. Like we're sitting on the sideline and money is being made and shoved through our neighborhoods. Out around, I should want to say around our neighborhoods, not even in our neighborhoods. They are around our neighborhoods. Right. Let me see if I can get this whole thing with Maynard working. One last run here. Prime Video, my stuff. I see there it go. Let me want to let me download it, but it didn't. Let me see something here. I think I got my standard. We're gonna see if it works. Let me see if I do it that way. Can I download? No. Say your was play in standard definition. And let me see if I can get the closed captions on. Yep. Oh yeah.
Growing up here, I had what I considered a normal child life.
Can y'all hear that?
Except it was under pressures from being a minority, being Jewish.
See, I
There
can
were
just
things
kind of
that
scroll, but I can't launch
wasn't
stuff.
invited to do that others were.
We had black businesses all up and down Auburn Avenue, Bankhead Highway, everywhere else. So we had black banks, we had black insurance companies, we had black recording studios. We had a lot of things that were kind of forced upon us because of segregation, where we had to do a lot of things.
When we traveled from North Carolina down to Atlanta, for example, to visit my grandfather, we had to plan ahead places that we could stop and get gas because my father and mother would not stop at a place where they would not allow blacks to use the bathroom.
When I was growing up, for us to go from our house on Sunset Avenue to my grandpa's house, 540 Houston Street, to make that trek took about an hour.
Could you talk about the accident that your dad had?
Yeah, I was in the car. Hard to talk about.
His father was going down Hunter Street, which is, all his names have changed, and he turned left on C Street, that's changed too, right in Washington High School. And as he turned into the corner, a policeman, a white policeman on a motorcycle,
came around that field curve at Washington High and slammed dead into the front of my daddy's car, and it severed his leg, severed the motorcycle cop's leg. They took my daddy to court. He went through all kinds of hell, and he had a nervous breakdown behind.
This is Maynard Jackson's dad.
Being a man of God, he could not bring himself to accept doing this to another human being, to maim somebody. Never got over the responsibility of that. Physically developed double pneumonia, and that's what he died from. But he died of a broken heart. And when you thought about my mother raising these 6 children by herself, we always have to give credit to our grandfather, and especially our Aunt Matta Wilton.
Well, I would think that Maynard Jackson had the right bloodline. And that bloodline was John Wesley Dobbs.
JWD, he had it inscribed on everything. He didn't have anything growing up as a child except determination. And he taught that. He taught it to his children and to his grandchildren. He went to Morehouse for 2 years, but he had to drop out. That's one thing about him. Anything he had to do for his family took priority over everything.
Well, John Wesley Dobbs was my maternal grandfather and also Maynard's maternal grandfather. Our mothers were sisters. And Irene Thompson Dobbs and John Wesley Dobbs were very, very key figures in our lives.
So do y'all know who John Wesley Dobbs is? Have you ever heard these names before? No? Maybe, could be. Okay. Here, let me pull this over so you guys can see what I'm looking at. Yeah. So John Wesley Dobbs, African American civic and political leader in Atlanta. He was often referred to as the unofficial mayor of Auburn Avenue, the spine of the Black community. Dobbs co-founded the Atlanta Negro Voters League, and with a civil rights attorney, A.T. Walden. We'll talk about Walden another time, but here's Dobbs and his daughters who graduated from Spelman again. You notice what I'm talking about here? You see what I'm talking about when we start talking about separation of here. And they all earned their masters as well, and 2 obtained their doctoral degrees. Do you think their daddy told them to go get their masters? Do you think their daddy told them to go get an education? Probably so. Right? Here is Aunt Geeky became an international opera singer. In the 50s, she obtained a bachelor's degree and master's degree in Spanish. She was one of the first African Americans to sing at the Metropolitan Opera Company in New York City, and the first to sing La Scala Opera House in Milan. She vowed to never sing in a segregated audience. This is her here on the front of Jet, right? This is going through his grandmother, what she has done, and so forth, right? Josephine Dobbs Clement, early college, high school. This look like it's in Durham Public Schools right here in Durham, North Carolina. So if you guys are familiar in North Carolina area, here's a little history, fun fact, right? And then Dr. Irene Dobbs Jackson obtained her PhD in French at University of Grenoble and Toulouse in France, and taught at both Spelman and was the foreign language department chairperson at North Carolina Central University. She is the mother of Maynard Jackson, the first African American mayor of Atlanta, Georgia. And then they go on to talk about Maynard here. Right. And John Wesley Dobbs, that's his picture right there. That's his statue right there in Auburn. So if you guys go down to Auburn Avenue and you wonder what was so special about Auburn Avenue in the Black community back then, why we have the Sweet Auburn Festival and what that looks like and what that is, here's the history behind all of that. Right? Says here, from a segregated childhood to integrated medical practice in Charlotte, the first African American ophthalmologist in Charlotte, practicing in 1973. Right. So they go on to talk about more things that they have done, the history of their family and so forth. So again, understand those foundations, those legacies, and so forth and so on. So just pointing that out of who that person was. All right, let me get back to the interview. Let me see, where is it at now? Right here. Yeah.
His grandfather, John Wesley Dobbs, was
known as the highest ranking Black Mason in all of Georgia, was the unofficial mayor of the Sweet Auburn community.
Nothing made him prouder than to put on his regalia and to march in all those different marches they had. And you really didn't come into the Dobbs family a male and not become a Mason.
After Maynard's father passed in the 1950s, John Wesley Dobbs took a very personal interest in Maynard and would have him drill before interviews and kept up with him in college and even when he went to Boston, et cetera. So he was a very pivotal and key figure.
Again, a male reaching back, setting precedents. Yes, your father has died, but I'm going to reach back and make sure you get to where you need to be, because again, it's not just the fact that we got a legacy there. I want to see you successful. I'm going to pour into you so you can go do greater things, right? And that's what it takes. It takes you reaching back.
In Maynard's life.
Maynard forever talked about John Wesley Dobbs and his own father, Maynard Holbrook Jackson Sr. Both of these men played vital roles. The ministry side from his father, and then John Wesley Dobbs was the activist, the civil rights fighter, the one who established the Voters League to get Blacks to vote.
So political activism wasn't anything new to Maynard. It was kind of in his blood. So that shouldn't surprise anyone that Maynard took the path that he did.
Let me know if y'all find this interesting. Just let me know if you are picking up what I'm putting down in terms of navigating, networking, building your community, moving forward, pouring in. But again, you can't pour into somebody that doesn't want to receive. I'm not saying that. That person got to be willing to receive. Right? If that person ain't willing to receive, you got to kick them to the curb. You can leave them with the books, you can leave them with the phone number, you can say, come reach me when you get a chance, but they got to get up out of here. Right? I continue. I just want to make sure that I ain't boring you to death. I'm looking at how he navigated and what we're looking at today. I'm looking at how he navigated coming into, remember, Atlanta, second poorest city. Can we, you know what I'm saying? Second poorest city. Most Blacks are poor, not going anywhere. Right? So let's talk about it.
Dear old Morehouse, we have pledged our lives to thee.
The way he spoke, the way he thought, he had a brilliant mind. Brilliant. The fact that he went into Morehouse at 14 was saying something.
He came in so young, he finished at 18. He skipped a lot of grades.
And then so he went to Morehouse at 14, graduated when he was 18, but you guys be afraid to show that you're smart. You are afraid to show that you know something because you don't want to be put into, the video won't play. So I got to go with the subtitles. So I'm sorry. But again, when we're looking at this, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to be smart. Don't be afraid to be smart. Don't be afraid to know that you can read. I tell you, your most critical, the most valuable thing you can do in tech is read. The second thing is apply. The third thing is networking. Read, apply, network. Read, apply, network. I'm telling you, reading is going to save you a lot of time. Yeah, you only see me. I know when the segment plays, you don't see me. You should see the subtitles. You should see the subtitles. All right, I'm getting ready to play now.
Went away. I want to say he went away. Next thing I knew, he had gone up to Boston University Law School.
Well, when he went to Boston University, the family was upset that he didn't finish.
Maynard's problem, as he explained to me, was taking tests. He didn't know when to shut up. He didn't know when to stop writing the answer to a question. So you may have 5 minutes to answer 2 questions. If you spend 5 minutes on one, you don't get to the other question. You fail the test. If you have met Maynard and you talk to Maynard, you know that he had an opinion about everything. And so as he continued to give his opinions on paper, he would not pass tests.
The dean told him, he said, you've been rushing and you're smart. The world is going to be there. Take some time off and work. Get to know society, get to know people, and find yourself. Then come back to law school.
I think Maynard punching out at BU taught him a lesson. It said that you've got to be better than you think you are. But when he came to North Carolina Central, you know, his mother was a professor of French there. And he enrolled and went on to graduate from North Carolina College, and cum laude from law school.
Now, this is a photograph of...
I met Maynard when I was in graduate school at North Carolina College, and he had a friend. Ralph Frazier had told Maynard about this fox.
All right, Ralph Frazier. Do you know who Ralph Frazier is? All right. Let's see. Nope. All right. It's cool. It's all right. Let me pull it up for you. All right. Because now when you start thinking about North Carolina and Durham, those areas, Atlanta, and DC, just along that line. So Ralph Frazier and Maynard Jackson were prominent figures connected to Atlanta's Black history and activism, with Frazier's establishment a hub for civil rights leaders, including Jackson, reflecting their shared involvement in advancing racial equality in Atlanta and social and political spheres during that. So Cafe Society, this was a significant Black-owned social spot in Atlanta, a meeting place for activists and leaders like Jackson, Abernathy, and others. Share activism, community leadership as well. So again, remembering Frazier's Cafe Society, there's a whole Facebook post on that. Public Service Awards. Here's Evelyn Frazier. She died in 2007. And then just a slew of things that they have done. A.D. Frazier, COO of the 96 Atlanta Olympics, how the Olympics came to be. And you should also note Herman Russell out of this as well too, for helping build out the city for Olympics. So Herman Russell, we like to call him XJ Russell. Olympics, Atlanta. All right, he played a significant role with the firm securing substantial contracts for construction and program management and continuation of the legacy in shaping Atlanta's skyline infrastructure, including key sports arenas like venues like Centennial Olympic Park, the Olympic Stadium, which later turned into Turner Field. You can go check out H.J. Russell. They also have a program for you to get into if you want to learn to be in commercial real estate. They do internships as well too. So just today, H.J. Russell companies remain the leading multi-generational business still involved in major sports and public assembly projects and so forth. So again, H.J. Russell, let's go buildings built in Atlanta. So the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, State Farm, Hartsville expansion, the National Center for Civil Rights, for Civil and Human Rights, 191 Peach Tower, and the Coca-Cola headquarters, just to name a few. Those are things I think you guys will recognize. Right? So you should be able to recognize though. Right? I'm only pointing out, let me see, H.J. Russell buildings in DC. All right, so the Smithsonian National Museum of History in DC, built by H.J. Russell and Company. So again, when I say Atlanta and DC have a relationship, and it stands for Marion Barry and Maynard Jackson, these are the things that I'm talking about. So when I talk about government contracts and so forth, it's not just me talking about a way to build wealth, but it is like the only way to build wealth, but it's one of the ways that they got together to help build wealth as well. So let me see if I can find that clip. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Uh mm, okay. Let me see if they got a video of it. Let me see. Let me look and see if they got a video for that. If they got a clip of it. No, they don't have a clip. It's in this Maynard video. All right, let's get back to it. I'm gonna keep looking for it.
That he wanted him to meet. Ralph was at my house. He and Annie Mae, that was his wife's name, and this knock came on the door. Bam, 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 went to the door. There stands Maynard. He says, "Is Ralph Frazier here?" with his booming voice, which impressed me. And so I said, "Yes, he is. Would you like to come in?" He came in. He sat down. I asked him, "Would you like something to drink?" He said, "Yes. Do you have any cognac? Hennessy, to be specific." Now, I'm a little country girl from Lewisburg, North Carolina. Well, I had a bottle of Hennessy cognac, quite by accident. And I had gone to what we called then the Five and Dime store. And I had bought some brandy sniffers, trying to be sophisticated. And so I served Maynard Hennessy in a brandy sniffer. Well, lo and behold, that blew his mind. We got married at the Morehouse Chapel. They called it the Little Chapel. Dr. Benjamin E. Mays and Dr. Sam Williams married us.
I wish y'all could see.
Maynard came back from law school, and out of the blue, he decided to run against Herman Talmadge.
All right, Herman Talmadge. Let's talk about him. So y'all know who he is. Put some context to it. Here's old Herman. Herman Talmadge, lawyer and former U.S. Senator. All right. Go away. All right. Was a politician who served governor of Georgia in 1947 from 1948 to 1955. He was also the U.S. Senator from Georgia from 1957 to 1981. A Democrat, Talmadge served during a time of political transition both in Georgia and nationally. Now remember, Georgia is going through Atlanta is going through a phase. It's becoming from white to being a majority black. And it was something that they had never seen before, and people were not ready for that. No, and then we're getting the airport, and we're getting the airport in the 80s. First one, 1980. Now remember, we're still going through transition as we start, as we're talking about this. He hasn't become governor yet, but mayor yet. I'm just setting the background up of what he had to navigate in order to get here. And these are the same things that you navigate owning a business or working for yourself. How do you do it? How do you stay in it? How do you keep your mindset? Some people go overseas, some people stay. So we're just putting faces to this video because again the video won't play here. I don't know why it was playing earlier, but now it just does not play.
Let me make this crystal clear. My candidacy is not a candidacy for one section of the people. It is not a candidacy to represent only one group. My candidacy stands for unity in the...
Now, who does that sound like Obama? My candidacy is not for one people, it's to represent everybody. Now, this is what we all get mad because you're supposed to be pro-black at all things. But if I gotta run for an entire city, I can't just focus on one part of the city. I gotta win. I gotta win. Right. So I can focus on one part of the city. But I can't say I'm just focusing on one part of the city. I gotta win.
State of Georgia.
He borrows $3,000, runs against Herman Talmadge in Georgia, and then he calls me. After he did that, I had to go back to work. We had just bought a house. We had a baby. We had no savings, and my husband didn't have a job. That was my introduction to politics. Was I upset? Well, what do you think?
The only issue in this race is whether or not the people of Georgia want someone in the Senate that can represent them in an effective way, that has had experience in government, experience in public service, experience in the executive branch of government, and experience in the legislative branch of government.
He ran against Senator Talmadge in 1968, and he lost badly because it was a statewide race.
The South had not at that time recognized the political rights of African Americans. And so many people that no white folk would vote for him. But of course, some did.
But Maynard made it very clear that he wanted to get politically recognized, and there was a big anti-Talmadge vote. I voted against Talmadge for anybody he ran against, and Maynard knew he would have that vote.
Maynard did very well, extremely articulate, on the point, knew the issues.
And it demonstrated that there was could be a movement afoot to expand the political influence of African Americans in and around Fulton County.
I have lost this battle numerically. I've lost the battle for the vote. And I am, however, more grieved, I think, for the people of Georgia who were denied, unfortunately, because of some irregularities, an opportunity to cast their vote. And to make...
There was a lot of discrepancy going on in some of the areas of Georgia where people were doing hand ballots, and many of the people of African Americans in Georgia, in the rural areas and in the more country, smaller towns, were illiterate. Some of them didn't know how to read and write. And so the people giving them the ballots would say, put an X by Talmadge's name, and they'll...
Again, your biggest weapon is the ability to read. And you won't do it. And you won't do it. So much so they was killing you if you knew how, but you still don't want to do it. Put that in perspective. This doc is called Maynard. It's on Amazon Prime. It's $3.99 to rent it. And so forth. Right?
Cross him out. And so you had that going on where people who were thinking they were voting for Maynard were actually voting for Talmadge.
Once Maynard
does not win the Senate, he realizes that he can carry Atlanta.
There will be a new day. It will be a day which is shown, I think, by a new alignment of voters in the years to come.
It did make his reputation as a person who was a fearless campaigner, a person who was dedicated to the craft that he had undertaken. That was, in my view, that was a passion of his life.
I'm not going to be discouraged about this. We'll just keep on working harder.
You going to run again?
When I run for something again, I'm sure, because I am attracted to politics by the issues, I'm sure that some issues will arise in the future.
We decided that we ought to try to run Maynard for vice mayor because he made such a great impression.
Mr. Jackson, why did you not take up the challenge of running for mayor?
I feel that I can best serve Atlanta at this point in time as vice mayor. And my commitment is to Atlanta. And my commitment, therefore, is to do all I possibly can do in the best way that I can serve to see that we can solve our problems.
When Maynard took office in 1970, when he was the vice mayor, the doors of City Hall did not swing open and welcome him. The Aldermanic Board, the Board of Aldermen, had a regulation that said if the mayor didn't show up at the Aldermanic committees, the vice mayor could show up and could vote in the mayor's stead.
So what did he do? He took his power as vice and he leveraged that to get how he wanted and how to maneuver and how to swing what was needed, right? Take what's given. It's just like in football. If they're gonna give you 10 yards and they're gonna drop deep and give you 10 every single time, I'm gonna take it. That moves us forward. I take them 10 yards every single time. You gonna give me 10 and I know I need 10, 20, I'm gonna take 10. We'll make something work.
And in this case, Sam Cassell was not necessarily at all of these meetings. Maynard was there, and he voted. And so there was a move about to take that power away from him so that he could not come to meetings. And so there was a groundswell among the black aldermen and the black community, and they could influence government. So Maynard kept his vote. They didn't change the legislation that would have stripped the power from him to do that. So that attempt to get Maynard didn't work. And Maynard's relationship with Sam Cassell when he was vice mayor was strained. At the beginning, it was smooth. But if one person wants to go left and another one wants to go right, obviously there's going to be some strain. Maynard was a very pushy, kind of do it in my way kind of guy. The more you got to know him, the more you understood that he wanted to get it done, but he wanted to get it done in a way that he could endorse. And Sam Cassell was the mayor, so that didn't sit too well with Sam. Maynard could be a bull in a china shop, but a nice bull in a china shop. You know, he would respect the china, but if you didn't watch too well, the china would be not necessarily destroyed, but turned around.
When Maynard told me that he was going to run for a mayor, I actually was not shocked. He was one of the first to use polling and look at demographics and all, and it became clear to him that the demographics in the city of Atlanta had changed. It had gone from being predominantly white to now being predominantly black.
So what did he use? Data. He used data. Before we start talking about data mining, he used data. Numbers don't lie. What do the numbers say in your community? What do the numbers say in your city, in your country? I mean, not your country, but in your county. What do the numbers say?
And so he told me, he says, I think that I can win this.
The problem becomes he didn't go and talk to the black political kingmakers in Atlanta, so he annoyed them.
I think the elders in the community thought that was a little brazen.
Who does he think he is? Yes, he's a Dobbs. Yes, he has the pedigree to do this. He has the educational background to.
She said pedigree. He has the pedigree to do this. Going back to what I said earlier.
Do it. But why would he do that? So he got some backlash from other persons who were moving up the ladder in the realm of black politicians in Atlanta.
And they said, well, if you run, here's what we want you to say. You want you to take positions on this and that. And so Maynard said, looked at him, he says, you don't want a candidate, you want a parrot. And he said, I'm not going to take those instructions, and I have a platform, and these are things that I want to do. And the room went silent. To their credit, after they went through the analytics and the data and all, they came around, and Jesse Hill became the campaign chair. Herman Russell was the chair of the finance committee, and I was the treasurer. And so we worked very closely with them, and they were very, very supportive of Maynard. Sam Massell was adamant that Maynard would not be elected. How dare you, as an upstart, run after one term as vice mayor and challenge me?
Anyone who has a potential opponent at his back feels some tension, and I'm sure he felt some, as did I. I mean, everybody has a right to run, but to exercise that activity where you're calling on the public to give you money and you're taking their vote, and if you're not able to give them better government, then you shouldn't be in it, in my opinion. I thought I could do a better job than Maynard, and that's the reason I ran.
There are numerous aspects of Sam Massell's campaign in 1973 where he would go to the Butler Street YMCA, he would go to the Hungry Club, and he would say things such as, if you're trying to get a black mayor at this point in time, you will be like Newark, New Jersey, which was the epitome of urban blight.
Hey, Robert, he got mad one day at the Hungry Club and challenged us black leaders that we need to start thinking white.
Being on the other side, I'm glad he made the speech like he made. Because he told me that I got to think white to get along in this society. And I feel I can think black and get along in this society.
The more he got out there and talked about the racial divide and all of the racial things, the more charged we were about making sure that Maynard was going to be the first African-American mayor of this city.
Sure, right?
Yeah, I'm reading Atlanta's greatest black leader doesn't happen to be black. Yeah, that's a nice head, isn't it? That's a beautiful statement. That's a beautiful statement. How many other whites do you know would claim they're black? That's a beautiful statement.
Right before the election, former mayor Sam Massell, then Mayor Sam Massell, had this big PR campaign about Atlanta's too young to die, which basically said, if you let this black man, all the things we've worked for are going to go away. And there was a huge backlash in the black community in response to that.
Ralph McGill Jr. wrote it. Ralph McGill Jr. Nobody would name Ralph McGill Jr. would have written that ad if they thought it was racial. To run something that was racial would just be unimaginable.
And I think it ended up being partially being the undoing of Sam Massell, because I think that really motivated black people to come out and vote for Maynard.
We didn't see that coming. I don't know if Maynard's administration or his team was smart enough to maneuver that, to spin it, or if it's just luck. But they came out where some of my white friends, liberal friends, felt it was, some of it was racial.
52%. Sam, I think, cost himself the election. Atlanta had changed, and Sam was still the buckhead boy he always was.
Back then, people were so excited about the idea of Maynard Jackson becoming the first African-American mayor of Atlanta. It was phenomenal.
So what happens when he becomes mayor? What does that open up for Maynard Jackson? So if you go do the history of mayors of Atlanta since Maynard Jackson, this is what you'll find. So that list is Andrew Young, Bill Campbell, who ended up going to jail too. Shirley Franklin, Cassine Reed, Keisha Lance Bottoms, and now Andre Dickens. And that is your history of Atlanta. Again, those are the mayors that we've seen and how they serve. So, again, Andrew Young. This is wrong right here because Maynard was before Andrew. Andrew Young, you got Maynard, Bill Campbell, Shirley Franklin. You got Cassine Reed, Keisha Lance Bottoms, and they're 4-year terms. And then Andre Dickens. Right? So again, looking at what they've done, what did they do? What does that look like? This is the last year for Andre. Is he gonna run again? Possibly. Who is his contender? Who's gonna run against him is what we should be looking at there.
And everybody got involved and did everything we could to make sure we could make it happen. My son was 4 years old at the time. He thought Maynard's name was Maynard for mayor.
On election night, after having gone through a year of planning this and then months of running the election, Maynard actually won.
When the vote came in, it was like Obama won. And when I walked into that room, somehow or another, my feet never touched the floor. The momentum of the crowd literally lifted me up and carried me to the stage.
Today's victory, and it is a victory.
A lot of people on the stage. David Franklin was there, Jesse Jackson was there, some other friends of Maynard's were there, his mother.
The whole family was there, all of the cousins were there, and so it was almost like a family reunion. It was a John Wesley Dobbs family reunion, but we were celebrating not each other, but celebrating Maynard's victory.
It is a resounding affirmation of the principles of unity and of brotherhood that have helped make Atlanta truly a city too busy to hate. And we are that city.
Atlanta was the capital of the South. And for him to be able to win the capital of the South and really call shots was unbelievable. It was huge.
Let me give you some context. For him running, Jackson's victory was a result of a strong support from the Black community, where he secured 95% of the vote in the runoff, along with the support of some white liberals. It says Jackson was reelected after his first term for a second term after the break. He ran again in 1989 and won a third time in a landslide victory of 79% of the vote. So I wanted to give you that history of navigating. It's so much more in here to talk about. Right here, I think this is one of the big highlights. That's the Wayne Williams stuff. Let me see.
And used to live in Miami, says that he delivered some of the children to whites to be killed.
I would argue that the person that was accused of killing and subsequently convicted.
In the world ever came up with the idea that Muhammad Ali and Maynard Jackson would fight in a pretty nondescript gymnasium, and that Julian Bond would be the referee.
That's this part right here.
Well, that all tremendous help.
Out of Atlanta,
and he was forever fighting that battle.
Well, the Atlanta airport was one of the busiest airports in the country in the 1920s and 30s.
as a postal service airport. And it really was just a big hangar.
When I came to Atlanta for the first time in 1950.
So go check it out. Go check out Maynard. There's a couple of other ones that I want to do to talk about. We're talking about navigating as well too. I'll pull those up. If I get this downloaded, I'm trying to get it downloaded. It didn't. It just won't play for me. It's something to do with the HDMI here and going through USB-C when it comes to this. But this is the video Maynard, the Obama before Obama, in 1973 at 35 years old, became Atlanta's first Black mayor, and gained national prominence as the most significant political leader as well. Also working together with Marion Barry on going after government contracts in Atlanta and inside of DC to create Black wealth. That is one of the big things about this video. And if I can find it, I'll bring up the conversation, because there's a conversation that they actually have on video about it. About how to create Black wealth in two cities through government contracts. And yeah. Yep. Let me see. Yeah, so here's just a little expose here. So Maynard Jackson revolutionized government contracting by implementing groundbreaking affirmative action policies mandating minority participation in major projects like the airport expansion, breaking the large contracts into smaller ones, and requiring banks to support these new businesses and setting national standards. When he also took office in Atlanta, he pulled all the money out of Atlanta, out of the white banks, and put them in Black banks. Like the money went to the Black banks, because again, we're trying to grow. So again, I don't have to tell you what I'm about to do. I'm going to do it, but I can't tell you, because then you want to let me, right? Contract splitting, divided huge contracts, 100 million, into smaller $10 million, enabling smaller minority-owned businesses to compete as prime contractors. Financial support required city depository banks to offer lines of credit to the newly empowered businesses, helping them build capacity. Joint venturing, economic growth significantly increased minority contract awards from less than 1% to 35%, fostering Atlanta's growth as a Black economic mecca and producing numerous successful Black-owned businesses. National standard, his programs, especially for the airport, became a model, influenced federal contracting policies, and sparking national debates on economic equality. I could go on and give you the players and stuff in this and how they affect like men and women. I guess I should do like a documentary on this. Just things I've just known, just being in Atlanta over the years, and how people play a part and stuff in the regulations and how things came to be. So that way you understand how to navigate, right? Some things are in your power and some things are not in your power, but how do you navigate that? It's one of the big things. Let me see. Is this one? Nah, that's Roland Martin talking about it. Let me see.
This is Atlanta, Georgia, a city that for years has stood for culture and progress. A few months ago, its citizens elected a man they thought could best do the job as mayor of Atlanta. His name is Maynard Jackson, and he's the city's first Black mayor.
One of the most important figures in Atlanta politics was a man named Maynard Jackson. Jackson was elected mayor in 1973, just as the reverse migration was getting underway.
Maynard Jackson Jr. would become perhaps the most consequential mayor in the city of Atlanta's history.
Maynard Jackson understood politics, but he was also a very gifted speaker. He was a student of history.
We are the city that refuses to be divided by forces that do not realize that this is a new day. We are the city that refuses to despair, but continues to hope.
Maynard Jackson definitely sees himself as carrying on the torch of civil rights. And he's deeply interested in people returning to not just Atlanta, but the South more broadly. He thinks they should be part of making real the kind of promises of the civil rights movement. And he thinks the election of Black officials are a key part of that.
Jackson became mayor at a time when Black politicians were being elected to office in record numbers. And his administration would quickly become the model for what was possible through truly empowered Black political leadership.
Maynard Jackson was a gifted lawyer, so he knew how to weaponize the policy to work on his behalf. And so he starts making policies that were more inclusive of Black Americans.
When Jackson becomes mayor of the city of Atlanta, which at that point was slightly majority Black, they look at city contracts, and over 99% of city contracts went to white firms.
By the time he leaves office, Black contractors were receiving 35% of all city contracts, which meant that every Black entrepreneur from the Caribbean to the continent, from Chicago, Detroit, New York, they were all descending on Atlanta.
So Atlanta becomes the leading city of the new Great Migration. And it's defined in many ways as this Black Mecca by the Black middle class, by business owners, by corporate leaders.
One of Maynard Jackson's biggest triumphs as mayor was winning the bid for the 1996 Olympics.
The International Olympic Committee has awarded the 1996 Olympic Games to the city of Atlanta.
The Olympics coming to the South is important, especially for the city of Atlanta. It brings international.
Now I was on them steps when they made the announcement. It was one of them things that you got out of school for to go see if we was gonna get the Olympics. I was on the steps.
Attention to the city that seems to be the promise of Martin Luther King, right? We have this Black political leadership who is going to be in control. It also brings this kind of cultural flourishing.
The Olympics turned Atlanta into a world-class destination.
This is it.
So you don't get Andre without Maynard. You don't get Killer Mike without Maynard Jackson. You don't get those people. So I encourage you to go take a look at this video here. I'm trying to see what part where it's at. Hold on, that I think is important out of this video.
I can be spoke. That is where we are right now. And we both have
Made, man.
man.
We courteous at Made.
I be like, hey man, I say.
But also, it's you know, this is a fashionable city.
It is.
This city has a culture, it has a vibe. The mayor has to
PTSO,
reflect the
put
movement.
that shit on.
Yeah, you can't have a mayor that don't look and feel like the vibe of the city. Then he just a position holder and just a servant only, and not somebody that's within the thread.
Product of the city.
Yeah, you got to be a product, man. You got to be a part of the fiber and the fabric of the city. So I got to look the part. You know, all these musicians, entertainers, celebrities, all these. Basketball goes from 7 p.m. to midnight in my 40s, like 40.
With being from Atlanta, knowing how much Atlanta is dependent upon its nightlife.
Yeah.
You recognize a disconnect, and you put together a nightlife division.
So that part is important in the sense of Atlanta was known for its nightlife before, you know, several things have taken place. We won't mention anything about Buckhead and other things. However, one of the big things was and will always be the ability to go out on Sunday to Sunday, whether you want to do brunch, whether you want to do lunch, whether you want to do dinner, whether you want to go to an after hour spot. What do you want to go to the club before get out the club and then go to church? I mean, that is one of the things that has been a thing. And not just the club, but just the social events themselves in Atlanta, from the music festivals to the food festivals to art museum galas, so forth and so on. It is a thing. It's a fabric. It's nowhere in the world that you could be born in Atlanta and not, it's something for you to do, right? It may not be as big as New York City, but again, there's something that you can get into. Now, what has changed? The safety of those environments, as well as you get out the club, as you leave. Buckhead is not Buckhead anymore. One that used to be one of the safest places you could go to. But now that they robbing and stealing in Buckhead. Craziness. But this part I think is important.
Yeah.
How has that worked? What does the nightlife division, that sector do? And how has it improved the city's interaction with the nightlife business owners?
Yeah, Atlanta, man, is so many events, festivals, parties, restaurants, bars. Atlanta has to have a thriving nightlife scene. We gotta have entertainment. We built on it. People come here to party every Friday night. You see all them lights coming into the city they coming from Greenville, they coming from Nashville, they coming from Chattanooga, they coming from the South Side. Everybody's trying to get to the city of Atlanta throughout the whole weekend and even throughout the week. And so we really have a great nightlife scene. One of the things I wanted to do was enhance it by supporting them. And, everybody don't know how to do nightlife. Just because you got a building and you can fry some chicken or you got a DJ, don't mean that you got, the qualities that it take to make sure that it's safe, to make sure there's a good community partner when it comes to making sure that, your property is well.
So let's talk about this, and I think I'm gonna end it here. Yes, you can open up a chicken spot, but who owns the chicken spot? Who owns the building? Who owns the parking lot in which people are parking in? Where someone is renting a parking lot from someone and they're cutting them, they charging you $40 to park because they're trying to get their 20. So it's a 50-50 split. So they gotta charge you 40. So you gotta charge you $40 to park so you can go somewhere and sit down and smoke hookah and eat some chicken wings. Right? Or somebody outside, like, hey, you can't park here, this VIP parking, you can park down there, down that hill, right? Causing women to walk further in heels, up a hill, trying to get to a restaurant, trying to get to a spot. You do better catching an Uber, So it's those nuances that I think has changed the landscape of Atlanta. It's also changed the landscape in DC as well too. And it's also changing the landscape of how we interact with each other, right? Because again, we do go out to socialize, we do go to events. It's the same way with the I know you guys are very familiar with the gathering spot, right? And what that looks like and how that came to be. I think they're making anywhere from 8 to 10 million a year for the gathering spot. How they raise capital, what it has. They've expanded the gathering spot as well too, into other cities. Uh, what the model is. So you don't get these, you don't get these things, in my opinion. This only my opinion. You don't get that without a Maynard Jackson, in my opinion. You don't get that without a Herman Russell. You don't get those things. You don't get the commercial real estate. You don't get those contracts without a Marion Barry. Yes, understand drug addicts, so forth and so on. But understand how they navigated those situations and look at the situations they had to navigate, take notes, and then look at your own stuff and learn how to navigate using what you already know. We already know it works. We don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel. But understand how those relationships will form and then form your own. All right. I hope y'all had fun today. I just wanted to put that out there to understand how it, because you don't get to be that multimillionaire and own multiple contracts and do commercial work without this right here. Right? Yep, economic development is huge as well too. But I mean, listen, I could do this for 4 hours. I could do this for 4 hours. I don't want to keep y'all here. I already kept you here 2.5, but I could do this for 4 hours. It is one of my passions. It is one of the things that I detail and learn for myself how to navigate, not just from them, but many, many others that I learned how to navigate and watch. I tell you all the time, and I say this on the way out, language is everything. Language is everything. So understand the language in the environment in which you're in. Understand their language, and that'll help you out. All right. I appreciate y'all. Y'all be safe.